Once I had made up my mind to do this, I swam out to the ship and explored it from top to bottom. In the captain's cabin, I found a telescope and a Bible. In the storeroom, there were provisions in plenty, and in the carpenter's shop, all sorts of tools which would be very useful. When I visited the powder room, I found 3 guns, 7 muskets, bullets, lead and powder, as well as an old sword, enough to withstand a siege. I made a raft out of some planks and took my booty back to the shore. During the days which followed, I returned to the ship regularly and brought back with me iron levers, chests, empty barrels, blankets, a hammock, and all the ship's sails. I would have brought back a lot of other things, but 13 days after I had been shipwrecked, another storm carried the ship out of my sight. Far from being worried over this loss, I said to myself, Robinson, you took from the ship everything that could possibly be of use to you. You've got tools. Use them to improve your situation. If you do that, you won't have time to be sorry for yourself. The first thing I did was to drive a post into the ground near the sea. To the post, I fixed a cross made of planks, and I put the following inscription on the cross. I landed here on September the 30th, 1659. I decided to make 3 different sorts of notches on the post. Small ones for the days, slightly bigger ones for the weeks, and big ones for the months. And in that way, I would have a calendar kept constantly up to date. To protect myself from the wild animals, supposing that there were some on the island, I chose a rock at the foot of which I erected a tent, which I surrounded with a double palisade of stakes. Then I hollowed out the rock with my iron bar and made a spacious cave, which served me as dining room, kitchen, and cellar. And lastly, I made myself a table and a chair. All this involved a lot of work, and it took me a year or more to carry it out. I had thrown away the corn, which had been half eaten by rats, and I was surprised to find one day that it had given good seeds that I was careful to sow. For 3 years my crops were poor, but the 4th year there were so many ears of corn that I was sure never to be short of grain. To grind it, I made a heavy pestle. To sieve the flour, I used an old scarf, and instead of an oven, I used stones brought to white heat. My bread had a fine appearance, and it was not without some pride that I ate it for the first time. One morning, as I was going through the woods, I caught a parrot. I tamed it, and after a few months it could pronounce my name, as well as a few sentences which I had very patiently taught it. I was in the 4th year of my stay on the island when I decided to visit a tiny islet which lay some 3 leagues away. I cut down a big tree and hollowed out the trunk to make a canoe, but I made it so big and heavy that I was unable to launch it. I then made a smaller one which turned out to be perfectly satisfactory. All this, in addition to the other things I was doing, took me 2 more years. As soon as my boat was finished, I put out to sea, but almost immediately a strong current took me so far from the shore that I thought that I was lost forever. I'd nearly given myself over to despair when I noted that the water had a lighter color and that the current was less strong. Filled with inexpressible joy, I rowed as hard as I could towards my dear island that I thought never to see again. Exhausted, I flung myself down on the ground and fell into a disturbed sleep. A voice woke me.
Robinson Crusoe, where have you been? Where have you been? Oh, Robinson Crusoe.
It was my parrot. I took him on my wrist and went back to my house, where I spent several uneventful years. For a long time I had dreamed of breeding a herd of goats. I dug traps, and I was lucky enough to catch a big he-goat and 3 nanny goats, which I put into my enclosure. At the end of 2 years I had a herd of 43 animals. With the goat's milk I made butter and cheese, and with the skins I made myself clothes, as well as a hat of rather curious shape. Certainly was unlike any hat that had ever been seen on the head of an Englishman before. One day, some 16 years after being shipwrecked, I discovered in the sand the marks of several bare feet. Footprints of savages. There was no doubt of it. Filled with fear, I ran back to my house, barricaded myself in, loaded all my weapons, and prepared to fight it out to my last breath. But the savages did not discover my retreat, and I found no further sign of their presence for a further 7 years. I'd almost forgotten about them, when about dawn one morning, I saw a light shining on the shore. Looking through my telescope, I made out 9 savages dancing round their fire in what seemed to be some sort of ritual dance. Going onto the shore after their departure, I shuddered with horror on discovering the remains of a horrible feast of human flesh. I decided to wipe them out if they came on my island again, such was my horror. 2 more years went by without them reappearing. And then, one day, about 30 cannibals came on shore, pushing 2 prisoners in front of them. They felled the first of the prisoners and immediately tore him to pieces for their informal banquet, while the second stood waiting his turn. Suddenly, escaping from his guards, he ran away as fast as he could, closely followed by 2 of his enemies. I decided to save him, and jumping from my hiding place, I sprang at the nearest of the pursuers, felling him with the butt of my gun. The second stopped to take aim at me with his bow and arrow, but I blew his brains out with a bullet. Terrified by the noise of my gun, the fugitive threw himself at my feet, begging me for mercy. Reassured by my attitude, he kissed my hands and placed my foot on his head as a sign of submission. As for the savages, they had been terrified by my intervention and lost no time in putting out to sea. To commemorate the day, I gave the man I had saved the name of Friday. He was young, well-built, with a fairly light skin, and he seemed intelligent. I taught him my language, and at the end of 3 years he knew enough words for us to be able to understand each other perfectly.
Master!
What is it?
Oh, over there. 1, 2, 3 canoes. Savages come to eat us.
Courage, Friday. Do you know how to fight?
Me shoot with gun, but many come, very many.
I'm ready to risk my life for you. Are you ready to do the same for me?
When master say die, me die.
Follow me then. Come on. Here, stop. Let's hide under the trees. There are at least 20 of them. And there are 2 prisoners.
They go eat prisoners.
One of the prisoners is a white man. We must save him. Are you ready?
Yes, master.
Fire! Follow me! Are you hurt, sir?
No, thanks to heaven.
Take this gun then, and let's give these devils something to think about.
With pleasure.
We must have killed about 10 of them.
The others are fleeing in their canoes. My name is Fernandez. I owe my life to you, senor.
But where's Friday? I hope he hasn't been hurt. Friday! Friday! Friday!
Isn't that him talking to my fellow prisoner?
Oh, yes, he must be questioning him.
Mayoko, yalikiki, tontumontu, tontikiki, yokoko, kiss, kiss.
Pitikili alukiki katako glogloka kiss kiss.
Pelikatu, yototok patutukiki, kiss, kiss.
What have you been saying to the prisoner? Do you know him?
Yes, master. Me know him. Much like. He my father.
How did you fall into the hands of these cannibals, Senor Fernandez?
We were on our way from the Rio de la Plata when our ship was wrecked. We reached an island, and all my companions were massacred. I would have met the same fate if it had not been for you.
Master, big ship, he arrived.
A big ship? Well, let's go and see, Senor Fernandez.
Look, it's an English ship. They've sent a boat out to the shore.
They've got a prisoner.
English? They eat prisoners too?
Whoa, lads, let's have a look round the island.
What about the prisoner?
Don't you worry about him. He won't get away.
Drink this rum, sir. You'll feel better after it.
Thank you. That's better. I'm Captain Johnson. My crew have mutinied, led by those rascals Atkins and Walcott. They've left me on this island to die of starvation.
I can help you, Captain. But on two conditions.
Oh, let me hear them, sir.
First condition, as long as you're on this island, you're under my command.
Aye.
Second condition, if we get onto the boat, you take me to England with Friday, and you don't ask anything for our passage.
You have my word of honor, sir.
The captain's disappeared. The devil take him. Come on, all of you. We'll get back to the ship and raise anchor.
I've got a plan, Captain, and all you've got to do is to back me up in what I say. You as well, Senor Fernandez.
Si, senor.
Leave it to me.
Don't move or I fire.
Who's he?
I am the governor of the island.
The governor dressed in goat skin.
I've got 50 well-armed men. If you resist, you'll be hanged. Senor Fernandez?
Si, senor.
Take command of the troops and surround the mutineers.
Si, senor.
I say, lads, this looks bad. Those that give themselves up will be spared. The others know what's coming to them.
You won't get me alive. Yeah, there's the captain. Walk on. Fire at him.
Don't do that, Atkins.
Yeah, what's the matter with you, Bradley? You gone mad or something? Let me go.
That we leave the captain on the island. Nothing was said about killing him. We are not murderers. Everything that has happened because of Walcott and Atkins. That's right, isn't it? I say we ought to ask the captain to come back on board and take charge of the ship again. Will you come, Captain?
I accept, Bradley. What about you others?
That goes for us too, Captain.
If your conduct's absolutely exemplary, I may forget everything that's happened.
Thank you, General.
Now, let's get back to the ship. We're making for London.
Me happy go England with master.
Go England. Go England.
Yes, you're coming as well, Paul.
You know miss your island?
Yes, perhaps a little. I've spent 28 years on it. But London's a beautiful town. You'll see, Friday. Big houses, well-dressed men, and streets full of laughter. And people everywhere. People. People.
Beano! Beano! Beano!